You're listening to the LA Football Podcast.
What's going on, Los Angeles? Welcome back to the LA Football Show here on the LA Football Network. We are live on the mightier 1090 ESPN Radio. I'm your co-host, Ryan Dyrud. Jamal Madney is out today, so I'll be flying solo here for the entire program. This is your Trojan Huddle, your USC football segment for the week. So what's up, Trojan faithful? What's up, USC fam? Huge USC basketball win last night, taking down the mighty Bruins. I believe the 8th-ranked Bruins in the country. They haven't lost since like November, and USC basketball, men's basketball, went on a run and took them down. So shout out to USC basketball, and good to see for our Trojans in that regard. And anytime you can beat UCLA, if you're a Trojans fan, that's a good thing. So thanks for tuning to the show, brought to you always by our friends at BetOnline. Make sure to head to betonline.ag today. Use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. It's going to give you a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Plenty to bet on. You got championship weekend this weekend in the NFL, plus all the other sports going on. I was at the Laker game just recently. I'll kind of talk about that a little bit. I had a good time there, so you can bet on basketball as they kind of make their run. You got hockey. The Kings are looking good this year. The Ducks got a win last night against the Stanley Cup champ Avalanche. So plenty of sports to bet on, or you can bet on futures for college or NFL. It's all done at betonline.ag. Use our promo code BELIEVE. It gets you a 50% welcome bonus. So, Trojan Huddle. It's the off season. We're in it. Portal is closed as of now. We got National Recruiting Day, or another National Recruiting Day, I guess technically, coming up in February. Get some of those players inked. USC has been very active in both regards. Obviously, we know how great Lincoln Riley is in recruiting. We know how good he's been in the portal. And we know all these great things that this team can be and will strive for in the 2023 season. And I know the season ended on bad terms. Didn't end the way we wanted to, considering how well the year went up prior to those final kind of 2 games. But a lot of good to come from that, and a lot of positive to kind of go forward for this team where we're going. And Jamal and I have talked about it a bunch on our show. Alfred Rowe, who does our Salute to Troy podcast, make sure to check that out if you haven't, on the LA Football Network. Former Trojan, he leads that one, has talked about it a bunch, about how, in his opinion, and he's obviously critical being a former player, but he thought the Trojans overall outperformed expectations. I know that expectations shifted because of how well the season went, through the first few months, and, going into the Pac-12 title, being ranked 4th in the country. Basically, all you had to do is win, and you're in the college football playoff. So that shifts expectation. It feels like a letdown, but based on where they were at in July to where they ended up, he thought they were ahead of the curve, and now you get a full off season to implement your recruits, your transfer portal, your systems, specifically more on defense, talking Alex Grinch. I know he's the hot topic, and not everyone loves Alex Grinch, rightfully so. But at this point, let's move on. Let's give him this year and see what can happen when he can get a little bit more talent and personnel in his scheme and what he wants to do on defense. So we've talked about it a bunch, so I don't need to go into all that stuff kind of again. But one thing I do want to talk about is how exciting it is to see USC at the forefront of LA sports again, right? Like during its heyday, during the Pete Carroll days, USC football, and, it helped that there was no NFL here, no Rams, no Chargers, but USC was like Lakers, Dodgers, and USC football. You could probably even put USC above Lakers and Dodgers, maybe. I mean, Lakers were really good during that time as well. You could probably put them above the Dodgers. But you had, Kobe and the Gasol years, I think, later on during that era, and you had the Kobe Shaq years right leading up to that. So they were probably went hand in hand. But USC was it. My guy Frosty Rucker was on that team, and he tells stories all the time, most of them off air, about what it was like to be a Trojan living in Hollywood during that era. I mean, you were a celebrity. And the city loved you, and it's Tinseltown, right? And they were at the forefront of it. So I say all that because it feels like after only 1 year, first 11-win year, only the second since the Pete Carroll era. So just remember that, how remarkable that is. Only the second 11-win season since the Pete Carroll era. And that happened in Lincoln Riley's first year. And obviously Caleb Williams has a lot to do with that. So that, after one season, you absolutely get this vibe that USC football is climbing their way back into the forefront of LA sports. Now, it's not quite there yet, specifically because of how the season ended. And obviously, this would be a lot different if they went to the College Football Playoff, or even if they just won that Cotton Bowl and had a good New Year's Eve 6 win, and this offseason was a lot more positive, which obviously we're going to turn it positive. But that would have helped. But overall, you're seeing them rise up, and specifically with Caleb Williams being kind of the face of sport here in LA. When you have LeBron, obviously. Like him, love him, polarizing. I mean, obviously a really, really good dude, but just on the basketball court, like him, love him. Whatever. I would say he's still probably the face of LA sports right now. I mean, when you're arguably the greatest player at your sport ever, top two, no debate, you're going to be the face of the city, kind of. Justin Herbert is obviously a huge, huge face and a star in the NFL, but the Chargers are still finding their footing in LA, and he's such a quiet, subdued personality. Matthew Stafford won a Super Bowl first year here in LA with the Rams, but love Matthew Stafford. This isn't saying anything bad, but he's not from here. He played 12, 13 years in Detroit, went to Georgia. Obviously now he's here now. He's the Rams quarterback. He brought us a Super Bowl, but a lot of the faces have to be here longer than just one, and half a season getting hurt this year. UCLA, DTR was great, but it's, UCLA football is obviously not as big as UCLA basketball, or isn't the same brand as USC football. DTR obviously now going to the draft, so he's gone. So when you look at all that, Caleb Williams, in my opinion, right now, is the face of LA football and can challenge for the face of LA sports. And it's crazy to say that considering LeBron is in this same town, considering the Dodgers win the division every year with guys like Mookie Betts and all their great players and Clayton Kershaw. But to me, Caleb Williams already, after 1 year, 20 years old, Heisman, is the face of LA football. And depending how next year goes, and obviously this is his last year playing at USC, but for that duration, can become the face of LA sports. That's how great he is. That's what he's done for the USC football program. That's how big USC football is in the city when they are good. And you combine all of those with NIL, sponsorships, radio spots, his personality, how good he is with the media, how active he is off the field, whether it be at other USC functions, whether it be at other LA functions. I mean, this coming weekend, or next weekend, I should say, NASCAR is coming to the Collie. I will be there. If anyone's going to that, hit me up. Love to say hi. I mean, I don't care if you're a NASCAR fan, a racing fan, or not. Seeing a NASCAR race in the Coliseum, that is freaking awesome. For those that don't know, it's a quarter the size, essentially, of a regular NASCAR track. So you're seeing these professional drivers on a tiny, tiny track in downtown LA. It's going to be sweet. So come say what up. I'll be there. Hit me up, Ryan Dyrud LAFB on Twitter. We'd love to say what up to you if you come and show out, and I'll buy you a beer. I'll cap it at 25 people. If 25 people actually come find me, I'll buy 25 beers, and I got to cap it. Sorry. I'm not made of money. I don't get paid enough here. But I bring that up because Caleb Williams is your celebrity starter at that event. Obviously, it's his house, the Coliseum. But it's obviously a non-football event. It's a national NASCAR event. They could have gotten other big celebrities. Caleb Williams is the one, being the starter at the start of the race. So it's fascinating and impressive. And a lot of that is to do with this team overall. the program that is USC football. But Caleb Williams, with his play on the field, his personality, his swagger, has taken over this city. And I think, like I said, can be the face of LA sports this coming season. Especially if the Lakers either don't make the playoffs or have an early exit. And going in the next year, you know USC is going to be a top 10 team in the preseason rankings, which is what I've talked about before. The preseason polls are a joke, but hey, we'll take it. It's our team, we'll take it. Start up high. So you know he's going to be a top 10. You know what we're getting in the receiving room. Losing Jordan Addison, that stings. He'll be a first-round pick in this draft in April. But bringing back Mario Williams, bringing back Brendan Rice, who broke out at the end of the year, bringing back Tahj Washington. You lose Kyle Ford, who I love. He goes over to UCLA, which is great for UCLA. But a loss for us was because of the versatility he brought to the receiving room. But you add Dorian Singer, not quite as big, but led the Pac-12 in receiving for Arizona last year. Torched USC. And so you have all these weapons for Caleb Williams. The running game is still, we'll see. Obviously, Austin Jones coming back. Raleek Brown's going into year 2, so we'll see how he kind of matures in his role and his style of play. The big thing I thought with Raleek Brown, and I'm going to go over the place. That's hard to do it by yourself, right? You don't have someone to keep you in line, so forgive me. But the big thing with Raleek Brown I saw last year, explosiveness, top-notch. Speed, it's top-notch. I mean, you could see the talent and the skill. You know, there's been, I don't know, comps, but like murmurs of like, oh, he has like the skill set of Reggie Bush, the start and stop, the elusiveness, the quick feet. The big thing with his, and you see this a lot with young, particularly freshman running backs, is the vision isn't quite there yet. Because in high school, if you're that talented, as a Raleek Brown was, you know, being from Monrovia, going to Mater Dei, with the talent you have on your team, Mater Dei is just so much above everyone else, minus, you know, John Bosco and Centennial and maybe a handful of other schools. But 80% of your schedule, you're just leaps and bounds better than everyone. The whole offense, the whole defense. So you don't really have to have vision. Like, the hole's going to be gaping. You're going to hit it. You make some guys miss on the second level. Boom, boom, boom. It all goes back. Once the playing field gets evened out, and you see it from high school to college, and then you really see it from college to the pros, is then it requires a little bit more patience. You still need that lateral quickness, and you still need that speed, but the vision is so much more important, because sometimes, specifically on certain plays, whether it's obviously a draw, that's obvious, but even in some of these, you know, different trap plays, different zone scheme plays that necessarily aren't power, which Austin Jones is kind of your power running back, and Raleek Brown would be more of your, you know, zone scheme, if you will. You have to kind of let some things develop a little bit and then pick your spots, right? So anyone that played football, specifically running back, and I didn't play running back, but, you know, I played receiver, and I obviously you have to know kind of the whole offense. Is there certain plays called, and depending on the coach, they can overcomplicate, undercomplicate, whatever you want to do. But certain, you know, A gap, B gap, C gap, however, whatever scheme you're running. And some of them are like, all right, we're doing an HB dive at the A gap. That's the call. You're hitting the A gap as fast as you can because you're just doing a push. You know, your center and your guard are pushing to open that gap up. And hopefully if you're running I formation with a fullback, he's hitting the second level, or you're going to make a guy miss in the hole. Simple. When you start doing zone and pulling guys and doing stuff like that, well, then it's like, okay, you have the option. And I'm not necessarily saying this is the USC playbook, but just as a general overall thought process and kind of how I saw Raleek Brown play, is this is your gap we're supposed to be hitting. However, if it takes longer, then we could shift to this gap, or hey, if the linebacker plugs that gap, then you can over here, yada, 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 and you have to kind of use your vision. What I saw a lot with Raleek Brown, at least early in the year, was he was just hitting that gap immediately where he was supposed to go, and it would turn into a 1 or 2 yard game because it wasn't letting him develop. You think of guys in the NFL like, you know, back when he was great, Le'Veon Bell, who just had superior patience and vision. Now, I'm not saying Raleek needs to be that patient, because Le'Veon Bell would get the ball and like it felt like he stood there doing nothing for like 3 seconds and then hit the hole. That's very hard to do. But if you can kind of slow down the motor just a little bit to let things develop and you see if that hole shifts, that gap shifts, I think we'll see Raleek Brown really meet his full potential because the talent is there. I mean, the speed is there. We saw him break one, against Tulane in the Cotton Bowl. And that's what this team will need, because if you have an Austin Jones that can run power and kind of wear guys down, and you get that flash from Raleek Brown, I'm not saying we're going back to the Thunder and Lightning days of Lendell White and Reggie Bush. USC may never be able to replicate that, but you'll at least get a similar vibe to that. Austin Jones with the Thunder, Raleek Brown with the Lightning. And then we can really see the pressure come off Caleb, which in reality, we'll see Caleb probably do even better, because in this season, the games where USC was able to establish the run and run the ball really well with their backs, not just Caleb running, but back before Travis Dye, got hurt with Austin Jones, with Raleek Brown, and they were able to establish that run and run the football well, Caleb played even better, because that just opens things up for him. And when the defense doesn't just know, well, they have to throw because they can't do anything on the ground, Caleb still would burn them because that's how good he was. But in the games when they had that running game working for them, it took some of the beating off Caleb, whether it was in the pocket or outside of it. He didn't have to take the hits, which I know is a big question and a big concern among the fan base, as it should be, and probably a concern for Caleb and his family as he's trying to go to the NFL and be the number 1 overall pick. But for the longevity of this team and for him, they can't have him taking those hits, meaning they can't have him having to play Superman and take over every game, and you do that by establishing the run and having that thunder and lightning capability. And then Caleb can drop back, and the defense is guessing because they don't know if it's play action, they don't know if they're running the football, and he can get the ball out in 3 seconds, not get touched, and just move the ball methodically down the field. It's also going to open up things for big playability down the field. So, yeah, I got off on a tangent there, but I see Raleek Brown being a very integral piece to this offense and to this running game. And the other guy I didn't even mention was, Marshawn, the transfer from South Carolina, not the other USC. Let's get that straight. They are not USC, right? They're South Carolina. Transferring here, though, I mean, that's a big-time transfer as well at the running back position that will add to that room that's not getting, as far as I can see, a lot of talk. And so watch out for him, as he's going to challenge for that starting spot. And he's a powerful runner. He does have speed. So this running back room, I was a little worried about it a little while back, with how they weren't able to really run the football against a team like Tulane. I mean, outside of that broken run by Raleek Brown, they really weren't able to run the ball. Austin Jones, I think, averaged like 2.8 yards per carry. And Austin Jones played very, very well overall in the absence of Travis Dye. But the consistency and then having him as the full-time starter with Raleek Brown, there was a little bit of concern there in terms of depth. But now getting this Marshawn kid from South Carolina, I'm really not concerned. I'm sure we'll see someone else come up through recruiting. Maybe another addition before the season or spring ball happens. But I think this running game is in a good spot. And then you add on Justin Tackett coming back at the offensive line. I know you're losing some pieces up there, but I think they've got some good transfers in as well that have come over. And the tackle from Florida, I think gave up 0 pressures last year in the SEC, and he's now coming to USC. To protect Caleb Williams. So I think the offense in general is in a very good spot. And the defense can't get much worse, right? Can't get much worse. They've done a lot of good things on the defensive line. Additions that, I think are going to be very important on the defensive line when you look at guys like Anthony Lucas out of Texas A&M. When you look at Kyan Bars transferring from Arizona. Obviously at linebacker, getting Mason Cobb and Jamil Muhammad, I think, are 2 great gets, very athletic, great sound tacklers, which will make everyone happy. And then one that everyone forgets, it's not a transfer. Transferred last year. Romello Height. Remember, injured. The Auburn transfer. Getting him back to be able to set the edge. And now you have a guy like Corey Foreman that we really want to see live up to that hype of the recruit. But now he doesn't have to have the pressure of being the guy. The guy that was just so highly recruited, and he has to be that star. He can now kind of come off the bench. You get Romello Height back. You have a nice rotation at linebacker with Mason Cobb, Jamil Muhammad, Eric Gentry, and Shane Lee. And then your defensive line can be a lot better than it was last year because that, outside of Tuipulotu, it was, maybe one of the weakest, just in terms of talent, defensive line that Lincoln Riley has probably ever had in his time as a coach. So that alone is going to help the defense get a lot better. So a lot of excitement. We'll have plenty more USC coverage. We do the show every week, obviously. So plenty of USC talk. Excited about, recruiting day coming again in February. We'll have coverage for you there. Make sure to check out the Salute to Troy podcast with my guy Alfred Rowe. If you want some good X's and O talk from a guy that did it, won Rose Bowls for the Trojans, he's the one to check out. So that's the time we got for this segment of the Trojan Huddle. Appreciate you all for tuning in. Jamal will be back on the next episode. Don't worry, you don't have to listen to me for 20 minutes straight. But I'm Ryan Dyrud. Everyone have a blessed weekend. We'll talk to you all next week.
You're listening to the LA Football Podcast.